Good evening, everybody. Today we are going to have especially the veterinary education update series. That's the interactive session 6, and today the date is 26 November 2021, Friday at 6 p.m. Under the banner of the Karnataka Veterinary Animal and Fisheries Sciences University, Bidar, Veterinary College, Shimoga. We are going to host especially the educative series on the topic entitled Opportunities and Challenges for the Establishment of a Pet Clinic by Dr. Yashasvi Naravi. He is a MUSc in Wildlife. He is also an alumni of our own university, that's the Karnataka Veterinary Animal and Fisheries Sciences University. He is the founder of Little Paws Veterinary Clinic, Charles Pinto Compound, Mangaluru, Karnataka State. And I am very happy to introduce him because he is also the alumni of Veterinary College Shimoga and a successful veterinarian in the pet animal practice. And the purpose of arranging this thing is the instruction of our beloved Dean, Dr. Nadur sir. Of course, he is not here today. He may join in between also because in future the veterinarians chances will increase as the pet animal practitioners. Hence, one need to be very acquainted with the procedure, how a clinic should be started and how it need to be maintained, and what are all the modalities, how to select a location for the establishment of a pet clinic, and what are all the criteria, what are all the legal complications if may come, and how to get rid of all those complications. So, this preliminary knowledge is required to a newly budding veterinarian, especially the students of Veterinary College Hassan, Shimoga, then Bengaluru, Bidar, etc. And also some of the students from the other universities may also join the series because they are very interested to join, and I have permitted few of them. So I welcome Dr. Yashasvi Naravi to this particularly the webinar series 6 is onward. Thank you, Dr. Naravi, for giving your very precious time, because I know that you are very much occupied in your day-to-day duties in the pet practice, but you are here to guide the junior students who are the budding veterinarians in future. So, I want to introduce Dr. Yashasvi Naravi, a brief introduction. Of course, he has established this Little Paws Veterinary Clinic, and the name is very catchy. And I think the Little Paws means a small foot of a cat or a dog, very attractive name. And Dr. Yashasvi Naravi is a successful veterinarian, young and budding, of course. Then he has graduated veterinarian from Veterinary College Shimoga, and he obtained his master degree in wildlife in IWVR. That's the Kodagu, which is under the umbrella of Karnataka Veterinary Animal and Fisheries Sciences, Nandinagar, Bidar. And he had an experience of working in the Karnataka Milk Federation, so it's also called as the KMF, and also the CUPA, Compassion Unlimited Plus Action, which is headquarters is located in Bengaluru, and many times the animals are being referred to the CUPA is concerned. And also he was a employee of Karnataka state government in different capacities in the treatment of the large and small animals. Of course, he is very much interested in small animals. He is an expert in the wildlife. So, varieties of the fields he has delivered his services in the capacity as a veterinarian, and he is one among the leading pet practitioners in Mangaluru, as he has established the Little Paws Veterinary Clinic with the modern touch with the facilities like the X-ray, ECG, ultrasound facilities, the laboratory examinations facilities for the routine hematology, biochemistry, and also the fecal sample examinations, and many more facilities for the benefit of the pet owners and also the pets like dogs and cats. Of course, apart from this one, he has also treated and operated many wildlife, especially the wildlife, and many cases from the Department of the Forestry and Government of Karnataka are being referred him for the treatment and also the management of the disorders of the wildlife. And he has also established a very good the state of art. That's the operation tables, and as you know, he is a very specialist, especially in case of handling the snakes, etc. And it it was a funny situation that he used to bring some snakes, etc., as the what you call as kiloness to the hostel also, and many used to fear to him. But he is such a brave guy, and I have seen since he was doing his MUSC and also the in the wildlife, also as a warden of the veterinary college, Bangalore, when I was doing his service. So Dr. Yashasvi Narvi says, I do give the pets as much as I can, not theoretically, but from my own experience. Say humble words. He says a humble young veterinarian. He is a strong believer in hard work with honesty. So he is always the dedicated worker. Without the proper diagnosis, he will never touch a pet, and very much committed for the diagnostic aspect. And many will get trained in his hospital, and also is the pet lover by himself. He himself has what you call it, nurtured many of the wild animals and also the dogs, cats, etc. So to become a veterinarian, not only the treatment skills and the surgical skills are important, but basically one should be a pet lover. Then he can involve himself or themselves by a great what you call as this dedication. And the Little Paws Pet Clinic and OPD surgery diagnostic pet shop dog sale, all these are the leading things in case of Mangaluru, and we are proud that he is an alumni of the Karnataka Veterinary Animal and Fisheries Sciences University, Nandinagar, Bidar. Of course, being the faculty of Veterinary College Shimoga, I feel still proud, and also his admirer. And I have visited his hospital and observed all the facilities which are developed by him for the pet in the very, very modern method. And yes, with this brief introduction, I request Dr. Narvi for the sharing the screen and take over the session, as you can take for another 45 minutes and also have the discussion with the members for having this particularly about the particular chapter, especially the youngsters. Okay, Dr. Yashasvi, you can share your screen.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening, everyone, whoever has joined the webinar in the busy schedule of everybody. This is a small, I don't know to what extent it will be helpful, but what I'll be sharing is my experiences so far as a clinician, as a veterinarian, as a private veterinarian, and owner of the hospital. So I'll be sharing few of my experiences, few of my thoughts, some ethics which I follow, some basic discipline we follow in the clinic, and whatever you have doubts about and fears of yours regarding opening a clinic or a hospital or working in a pet animal practice. Basically, I will. I'll begin with my slides. So it will be divided into 5 portions. That will be introduction and the present scenario, whatever is happening and how we are placed and what's happening in the field of veterinary sciences in India and so far around us. And what are the challenges we face basically when we are opening a clinic or while you're running a clinic or all those challenges I'll try to deal with and explain. And the basic solutions. Basically, it is my ideas and whatever I have learned so far with my experience, and those things I'll share. And most important will be the ethics part of it, which I very firmly believe in, which has to be followed by every veterinarian for a successful and a peaceful life. So my introduction, I think, as sir has given, briefly I'll tell you. I am a first batch of Shimoga Veterinary College. When it started in 2006, I graduated in 2011. For 1 year, I worked in KMF. And for 1 year, I worked in KMF from 2011 to 12. And 12 to 14, I started I studied MSc in Veterinary College Bangalore, which was a part of IWVR. I did my MSc in wildlife. Um, and during that time, I used to work as a night shift doctor in Cuba during from 11 to 7 as a emergency. They used to have a 24 hours clinic there in Cuba. So for 2 years, I worked in Cuba as a night shift. And after that, I joined state government as a veterinary officer. I was trying for wildlife deputation, but unfortunately was not happening. And I also felt I shouldn't be there for a longer time because it was the only intention I joined the state government for. So I quit my state government job and I started my own practice. And I also work for a NGO called Animal Care Trust in Mangalore, which is a which basically does the rescue and rehabilitation of the stray animals, animal birth controls and all. Meanwhile, I have my own hospital setup, which is set in 2015. It's been about 6 years now. Yeah. So introduction to the topic. Uh, Everybody says practice.
A little louder because voice is low, very low.
Voice is very low, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now is it audible?
Voice is low. It's okay. Now I think we can manage. My voice is audible, no? To everybody?
Your voice is audible, sir. My I'll be a little louder.
Yeah. Voice is very feeble. Okay. You please keep the mic very close to everything so that we'll manage it. Don't worry. Okay.
Yeah.
Please.
So the term pet practice, I don't use it very often. It's veterinary practice basically. Pet practice is a very not a nice term exactly. So it means basically you are dealing with cats and dogs in general in majority, but you'll also get all these exotic animals, wild animals, stray animals, different say large animals sometimes. That is also called as mixed animal practice. Most of the doctors in and around here in Mangalore and in Mangalore, I would say, would be mixed animal practice. We do get large animal also sometimes, and we also get exotic and wild animals in the clinic, irrespective of what we are doing. But majorly, it will be dogs and cats. So you can choose. You can also choose to be I'll tell you that later. You can also choose to be a specialist of sort. Like you can have a specialized practice. Say if you like only cats, or if you like only surgeries, or if you like only the general practice apart from surgeries. Say if you don't like doing surgeries, or you don't like being a part of say gynecological cases, or say you don't like cats, you only want to do dogs, that also you can do. Or you can also choose to be a very specific specialized surgeons like eye surgeon or a bone surgeon or a dermatologist. That is all depending on your interest and your specifications, how much you want to do, and how much you want to explore. This type of practice also can be practiced. And it's also important whether a person wants to be a employer or an employee, or if you want to be owner of the place, or you want to work under somebody, or either is good, because as an employee you don't have the headache of managing the whole practice and the whole economics and the financial part of it. You just have to work from there. Will be a time schedule, and you can work, and you can be a successful vet there as well. Or you can be a owner of the place. You can start your own place. You can have people working for you, and a team of people working with you. That is also a type of practice one can choose to have. Is the voice okay, sir, now? Hello?
A bit louder.
Bit louder, huh?
Audible.
Audible, no? Okay. So the current scenario in last 10 years, what I've seen has changed drastically, because I've seen these changes happening in from 2000, say 2010 to 2020. There has been a drastic change in terms of specializations, in terms of number of hospitals, in terms of number of veterinarians practicing pet animals, the pet practice in general terms. There has been more number of colleges, there has been more number of student outcomes, and many people venturing into private clinics and private hospitals. And the earlier there was ample opportunity in the state government, and everybody used to, like, I think most of the people in my batch might have joined veterinary, the state government, except 2 3 people. But now it is not that, so it's not been called like regularly that. And many people are venturing into the pet practice and the small animal practice as well, which is not a bad thing. So there has been drastic changes in terms of specializations as well. There have been many multi-speciality hospitals opened up in smaller cities, in a lot of them in Bangalore, a lot of them in Delhi, Bombay, in last 10 years. So, and franchises and companies are also starting the venturing into veterinary hospitals. Like, say, for example, Crown Vet is owned by, I think, Maharaja of Baroda or somebody, and he has a chain of hospitals running across all over the country in different cities like Bangalore, Bombay, and Pune and Delhi. So many more companies in future might venture into these things, and they might have franchises and veterinary hospitals as well. That is the one change recently we have seen and been seeing, and it might grow. An increasing amount of population of people and pets as well. The number of people in the cities, number of people in smaller cities have increased, and number of pets have drastically increased in over few years because of a lot of reasons. Even during COVID, the number of pets, the people having number of pets have increased drastically. So coming to the challenges, anybody can interrupt at any point of time. There is no problem with me. So
Don't worry.
I will briefly touch all the topics, and then whatever doubts you people have, you can ask me. There is no
Okay, okay.
formality in any way. Yes, sir. So basic problems and challenges we face when you start a, or you, if you want to say, if you decide one day that I in future I'll be working with small animals, and I'll pursue my career in treating animals, and maybe having a hospital, or maybe having a clinic or something. So once you decide that, then you the major problem is starting to work, like deciding and the start of the work. You might have the idea for like 4 years, 5 years, but you might not be in a this one right mind to start up the clinic in the first place. Like, say you will be urged to start, but you don't know where to start from. You don't know whether it will be successful, whether it will be a failure, whether it will be whether future I'll have opportunities or not, how it will work out or not. All these things, the starting that deciding to start the work, and actual to start the work itself is a little what we call as a starting trouble, something similar. So that is first challenge. Once you decide to start the work, you have to start at one point, no matter what. And other major challenge is will be building a good team. Nobody can function as a single person. I have done it for 2 3 years, and I trust me, it is not a good experience. When I started as a one doctor, and there was no attender also in the beginning, because I was not able to get one, because of the experience I'm telling. I'm new to this Mangalore city. I grew up in a smaller town called Puttur. So I don't know many contacts and how to get people, who to trust, and all those things. So I struggled without an attender also in the beginning of the career, but slowly I started having one person to attend to the cleaning of the place, and to assist in the surgeries and assist in treatments and all those things. Eventually started having a team of doctors working together, and receptionist, and one lab person, one grooming person, for one for the pet shop, and multiple attenders, and schedules for doctors different, like we'll have what to say, mm, different, say if you want to take holidays, one person will be there for you working. All these things we started eventually. This building of a good team, like having a very good team who you can believe in and who you can work with, is also a big challenge. And lack of knowledge is one big challenge I have faced and many people might be facing. It's nobody's fault, actually. It is the system how it is. Because of the system, because of the type of system we have, we might not be able to get all the knowledge from the college itself. So it is true also, you can't learn everything from the college. The actual learning starts once you start practicing, once you start seeing the cases. Or it is our own fault also. In college, we'll be very jovial and happy, and will not be very serious about studying and what is required and what is not required. All those things will add up to lack of knowledge. That is one major challenge we'll face when you start a clinic. Money, of course, money is everybody's problem. Majority of us come from a lower middle class or middle class background, and we won't have a lot of money with us. So money is one major challenge we'll face. Communication skills, since many of us come from a India has a lot of different languages, and communicating exactly with the right person with the right language, and the type of communication you have, and the confidence, all those things don't come suddenly with one. Like if you want to start with every some people might be very good in communication, but I was definitely not a very good communicating person. I'm an introvert. I don't talk to people a lot, but that communication skills also matter. Pricing. See, veterinary field is field with little limitations because we are treating animals. Animals, the treatment of animals come at a cost, and the cost of the treatment has little limitation when it reaches certain point, because it's animal's life. It is not a human life. Human life means they will go to whatever extent to save the human life. Say even if he lives for another 1 week, they will be willing to spend that much of money to save him. That is how the field is developed, and that is how they are far superior, far ahead of us in terms of technicalities and facilities. Just because all because of the pricing. If that is not a fault of any system, but that is how it is in veterinary practice. So there we have certain limitations of pricing our treatments and surgeries and everything. So that's one challenge you will face when you start up your own practice. Time management, managing the time between the attending calls, treating the patients, with your personal life, with your health, family. Everything is the biggest challenge you face after establishing your clinic. Legal formalities and legal troubles. Like when you start up a clinic, you will require a lot of licensing to do. It is not major, but you will not know what to do and where to start from. All these troubles will be there, like whether I have to get a commercial license or not, whether I should get a waste disposal license, where to get it from, whether I should get a PCPNDT for my ultrasound machine, or is it required or is it not required, whether I should have a commercial electricity or not, and a lot of taxings, the money, where it goes and how it is accounted for, the taxes, the taxes being paid, and all those things you will not know in the beginning suddenly. So all these challenges you will face. Once you know, it is not a bigger issue. And managing stress and personal issue, it is an extremely stressful job being a doctor. You have to make decisions, not only physical work. You have to make decisions. You have to think about a case. You need time to arrive at a diagnosis. You need time to improvise. You need time to figure out a treatment protocol. You need skills. You have to manage those skills to treat animals. And all this is very, very, very stressful. And if you are compassionate and if you have empathy towards animal, when you, especially when you do euthanasia, when you lose a patient, when you uh, connect with somebody, and when you lose somebody, it's very stressful. And it also affects your personal health, because it is also a physical job. You have to stand and do surgeries. You have to like squat and do some procedures. You have to physically handle animals, aggressive animals, and you will be exposed to X-rays. Sometimes you will be doing a lot of physical work and personal health, because you don't get, like, you will get midnight calls, emergencies, and no time, like the timely lunch and dinner and everything will not happen sometimes. All this personal health, managing the personal health is also a challenge. But everything has all the problems have solutions, so one don't have to be worried about it. So first thing is, be very original, be what you are. You don't have to pretend to be somebody, you don't have to follow somebody. You can follow somebody, but you can maintain your originality, what you are. You don't have to, like, uh, do a fake talk to please somebody. You can be yourself. You If you don't like if you don't have empathy towards animal, it's okay. You can be a doctor without having empathy also. You can say, if you feel like crying when a patient dies, that is also okay, because that is how you are. You don't have to pretend to be somebody, and be original with your ideas. Don't follow somebody's ideas. One second, hold on.
Yes, sir. Okay, please go ahead. Hello, please.
Hello. Sorry.
I'm muted. It's no problem. Please go ahead.
No, I'm back. Yeah. So this, yeah. Choosing a good location to start your own clinic. Sorry about the interruption. I had to see some case there. So choosing a good location to start your own practice. Say choosing a good city, or say you want to start a practice in your own place, or you want to start somewhere else apart from your place, in some other state, some other country. That's also okay. But choosing a good location, because you will be investing a lot of time in the location. Say if you start a practice in one place and you will not move out of that place for 4 years, that is a lot of time invested in that place. So choose a good location when you start a practice. Like, choose a good location in terms of accessibility, in terms of parking, in terms of even in little outskirts is also okay. Like, you don't have to be in the heart of the city to start a practice. You can choose to be in outskirts, or you can choose to be in a smaller town. It's not a bad idea to start there, but choose a good location according to your needs, according to your practice, and according to your type of clients, and according to type of practice you want to do. Say you want to do a large animal practice, say you want to do a equine practice, say you want to do a dog and cat practice. But all this will be very much dependent on a good location. We can cover this location part when you can ask many doubts about since I will just brush up through the points I made. You can always ask whatever doubt you have, like the practical questions I'm telling. Always think from the other's perspective. This is very important. You don't think from your own perspective. Always think from others' perspective. Like, think from the animal's perspective first, and think from the owner's perspective first. Whenever somebody comes to the clinic, I always ask, where are you coming from? Because he might be coming from Dharmasthala, and I might be postponing the today's procedure to tomorrow. Say I'll tell, you deworm today and come for treatment tomorrow. That will not be feasible for him. You always think from his perspective. He will be coming from on 100 kilometers away. He will want the treatment there only, and what will be the next follow. All those things you have to keep in mind, and think from others' perspective. How his economic status is, how like easy. Easy from a bad, like, easy economically not sound enough to pay for the treatment and all, or how easy is just greedy breeder who wants to breed his dogs for money, or all those things. You just have to think from the other's perspective, which will ease up a lot of problem for you. Be available all the time. like when you start a practice, the first thing, whether you are knowledgeable or not, whether you have equipment or not, whether your location is in a prime location or not, or whether you have a very like posh setup, none of this matters. Being available is the only thing that matters a lot. When people need you, you should be available. You shouldn't be not available, and like you can't tell in the, at least in the beginning, you can't tell people to come at your own convenient time. You have to be available for their own convenient time in the given time frame, I'm telling. But if you tell like, today I am not available, tomorrow maybe by evening you can come, in the beginning itself, then these people will just leave. They don't come to you. All this being available and giving service at the very crucial time for an emergency case, say for a block cat, say for a GDV, all this being available at the same time is very important to build up your career and for the benefit of the animal also. Communicate well, talk to people, even if you don't, even if you're not an expert in communication, or if you're not an expert in like language skills. See, I come from a Kannada medium school. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't I can't communicate well. I can communicate well enough to make people understand what the situation is, or make people to convince somebody about the situation, to convince somebody about the ongoing aspects of the clinic. Initially it will be hard, but eventually when you see the people, when you know the area, how people think, and what people expect from you, and all those things, when you think about, that's what think when you think from others perspective, you can communicate well. Always be in touch with fellow veterinarians. You will have a lot of seniors, you will have a lot of juniors, you'll have the same age group and same batchmates everywhere in and around you, or somewhere else also. Be in touch with them, ask for their help, ask for the opinions, ask what diseases they have in this situation, ask what they do. Whoever is willing to share, if some people will not be willing to share, that is okay, but be in touch with everybody. And you can share your knowledge, what you know, you can share with them. You can learn from seniors, you can also teach the seniors. You can learn from the juniors, and you can also guide the juniors. It doesn't matter, but be in touch with the fellow veterinarians, so that if they want to refer some cases to you, or if you want to refer some case to them, that there should be a mutual understanding, and you will have a wide network of doctors. And I don't think veterinarians, we have that sense of competition yet. Everybody helps everyone, and we are all like a family. So far I've seen, this is one good thing about being a veterinary doctor. You can go to any city and you can ask who's the veterinarian, and you can barge into his door and ask for help if needed, and he will never say no. And major investment is not the equipment, major investment is not the place. It is for updating your skills and knowledge. It is the continuing education programs, the books, the equipments to improve your knowledge and skills, like how much you practice. Invest on that. If a CV is little expensive, and if it is worth it, you just go for it. Don't think twice regarding it. You have to invest a lot on updating your skills and knowledge, and you have to update your skills every now and then. You can't sit quietly thinking that I know this, I know suturing, I don't have to go for a suturing workshop. If there is an opportunity to go, and if the time permits to go, you definitely have to attend. You have to invest a lot of time, money on updating your skills and knowledge. Also teach the junior veterinarians, teach the new like whoever is newly practicing, newly venturing into this field, teach them everything. Share your knowledge, whatever you have. Don't hesitate to share the knowledge, even if you there is nothing called hiding the knowledge. If you know a lot of things, you just share it. That also builds up your knowledge, and you will remember things better when you teach. Get a good financial advisor. We are all doctors, and we suck at financial management, except few. So if it is not our cup of tea, then get a good advisor who can guide you in this financial advisors. So get a good financial advisor, get a good CA, and talk to him regarding your business, and discuss these are the following. This is how it went through last year, and what all improvements I can do. How to manage different accounts. How to keep a track of all the records and all those things. He will guide you. You don't have to break your head on if you have to get one advisor for you who is very good and who should be friendly enough to talk about everything. And most important, take care of your health, your back, your the regular checkups, your we'll be dealing with a lot of zoonotic diseases. We'll be dealing with a lot of skin diseases, and we'll be doing a lot of surgeries, standing up. All those things will deteriorate your health, and it is like one what you say, you will age. So taking care of your health and your family is a very important part of your practice. Document everything. Take photos. Write case sheets. It all matters when you look back, and when you want to refer something back, and you will not remember everything. We'll do errors. So document everything, and you can also present it somewhere. You can also share it with somebody. You can also teach using those materials, and you can have a very good document of whatever you did so far. And it will also help you in a self-evaluation. Every day you have to think whether whatever I did, is it correct, or can I do any little more improvement? You can discuss with the other fellow veterinarians, and all those things will be useful if you document very well. One of the very good documenting person I have seen is Dr. Manjunath SP, who documents very nicely all the cases. That is some other level dedication, but we can do at least 20% of whatever he does, is what I think. And this is my personal opinion. Say no to house calls, except few, like say very old people and all. But if you have a setup in one place, make sure that the people come to that place. It is not a large animal. In a small animal practice, I'm telling. Dogs and cats they can bring in auto, they can bring in their car, or they can make some arrangements for bringing the dogs and cats there. But make sure that you don't go to the houses and visit the dogs and cats, because it just drains your time, and it also makes them think about you very they'll take you for granted, and they'll just call you for everything, even for vaccinations and small things. It's just not worth the time. And traveling includes a lot of risks of accident, the health, everything. So say no to house calls. And about publicity, I strongly believe word of mouth publicity is the best publicity. You don't have to put banners about your clinic. You don't have to put paper ads regarding your clinic. You can choose to put, it's not a bad thing. But what stays ultimately with you is word of mouth publicity. What people tell about you, what you deliver, and people say about you with other people. That type of publicity also is a very positive publicity. Say you advertise it like a very big hospital, and they come with really big expectations, and you will not be able to fulfill them. That is some irritating situation to go through. So word of mouth publicity is very good when they expect that will give a very positive client base for you in your practice. So very important thing is to have ethics. Ethics everybody follows, I think, and it should be followed, and that will make your life very easy and very you will have less tension if you follow ethics properly. First and foremost thing is animal welfare. In whatever situation, you think about animal first, whether it is being benefited out of it or not. That is your first priority. Think about them, then decide your decisions. Take decisions whether to proceed or not, whether to do that treatment or not. It should benefit the animal in the first place. And practice evidence-based medicine. Like, don't do it out of some fluke. Like, we do assume and do things out of experience, but mostly practice evidence-based medicine, so that it will be beneficial for you regarding, say, without like just looking at the symptoms, don't just prescribe doxycycline saying that it's tick fever. At least do a basic CBC. It will cost say 300 rupees for the owner at least, but it will give you a little more confidence whether it is tick fever or not, whether it might be something else mimicking tick fever, all those things. At least some basic diagnostics you can do to get some evidence regarding the case, and then go for the treatment. Don't just jump into the treatment part of it. Don't bend on to the popular demands. Say a breeder comes and tells, "Sir, I want my puppies here to be chopped or cropped for show purpose." That doctor does, and it will be very beneficial for you. All those things. Say house calls and doing surgeries, going to the houses and doing surgeries. All these things are popular demands. They want you to do it. It is not a very ethical thing to do. Stick to your ethics and don't practice dignity. And that's what. Go to the first point and see whether the animal is getting benefited out of it or not. Then you proceed. Don't bend to the demands of the people. Don't badmouth about your colleagues. Never do bad mouthing about your colleagues. That I think everybody will know. Don't promote quackery. Don't make the attenders do things. Don't like the basic treatments and everything you have to do. Don't be somewhere and tell the attendants or the paraveterinarians to do the treatment. If it is some routine thing like connecting the IV, connecting fluids and all, is okay, but don't let them do all the treatments in your absence, or don't send somebody home and make them do treatments. It is not a ethical thing to do. Yeah, this is the basic. It's very theoretically I have told, but practical questions you people will have: how to start, where to start, or what is required, and all those things you can ask directly. Can ask, no problem.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yashasvi, for very nice narration. And we will request the audience to have the interaction with the speaker, especially the youngsters who are present in this webinar. Yes, Dr. N.H. Sripadrao, sir. Please unmute your mic and you can speak. Please unmute your mic and you can speak.
Good evening, sir. It is very nice program I heard. So in Malnad, especially Western Ghats,
Yes,
we need to visit houses, sir. It's a problem. People will be staying in remote places, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers. So you told home visits, sir, it is not feasible for us. It is not good. But it is difficult to call them and get the animals treated, sir. How we have to proceed like this? Home visits are not good as per your these things.
I still stick to that. This one, sir. I have been working here, and I have also worked in areas like Sulya, Bajpe, and other places, which is which also has like remote places. But don't like, if I've told in bracket, I've written few exceptions. Like if it is really actually important, you can go. What happens is, once you go, people will take you for granted, and they will call you for everything, even for surgeries, even for cesareans, paying everything they'll do. That is a strict no. Don't do it. It will just drain you out. It will just make your health go bad, and it is not a nice practice at all. When you make it very strict, people will bring. They will deny in the beginning, but eventually, when they know that you don't come at all, they will definitely bring. It is not a problem.
One more clarification.
Of course, very remote areas, I agree. You might have to go, but it is not worth. It is really not worth.
Okay.
This is my personal opinion.
I agree with you, sir. Regarding surgery, really you are 100% correct. So regarding these outbreaks are during parvo or whatever it may be, communicable diseases, outbreak time. So it is, in my opinion, it is better to avoid animals in the clinic, because it may be a point to hotspot for the spread of the disease. Our clinic may be a hotspot to the spread of the disease. So other good animals or good ones won't turn up. So what you have to do in that situation, especially in outbreaks?
For parvo treatment and all, you have to make a little separate area, say in the outside of the clinic or for the CD cases and all. You have to isolate them and do the treatment. Say if you need twice fluids, morning and evening, or if you need a full day IV fluids for the animal, you can fix a cannula. You can teach him to connect the cannula IV fluid. You can load it in a 100 ml bottle or 200 ml bottle and give it to him in just the fluids I'm telling, just the fluid maintenance, the injections and everything you can give in the place itself. But going for all parvo cases everywhere, I don't think it will be a feasible idea for the doctor itself. It is very tedious. I agree with the remote locations point, but as far as your avoid it to maximum extent. Don't go to like very few cases. Very few cases you have to visit, especially dogs and cats. Cattle, I agree. Cattle we have to visit because they can't win.
Yeah, few questions are also waiting from the audience. Dr. Basiri Dinesh, he has asked, what will be the skills to upgrade apart from radiology, USG having scope in specialization in small animal practice? I think you can also read the comments. Sanjay.
Second, I'll read the comments. Wait.
Is it visible to you?
The comments are not. It's okay. Yeah. Wait 1 second. I close this one. Okay. Wait 1 second.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What will be the skills to upgrade apart from radiology, USG having scope of specialization in small animal practice? Like a lot of small things like emergency medicine in for example, not many people will be doing it, like to diagnose and treat the emergency practices, and having small equipments like a microscope or otoscope or specific gravity meter or the ophthalmoscope. All these smaller things can be utilized, and you can there is a scope for specialization in ophthalmology. You can be a dermatology, like a lot of dermatology cases come. I don't like dermatology, but still they come to the clinic, and I really wish somebody can see them. So all these specializations can be done. In terms of equipments, you can have a gas anesthesia, you can have a very nice OT, you can have a good OT light, OT tables, and concentrate infusion sets and all, which are not very expensive. All these things will make a lot of difference in your practice. Any specific questions regarding that, you can ask me. Where to get it from, what you have, and what will be very useful, and all those things you can ask, no problem. One more question is, what is your favorite injectable anesthetic? From Dr. Avinash. Injectable anesthesia combination, lot of combinations I practice. Most of the time we use the propofol for induction maintenance, and it's a totally different area. You have to do a lot of pre-anesthetics like butadiazine, butafluone, and things like that. Injectable anesthesia, most of the time I use is propofol. I don't. I use thiopentone, but not very commonly. I don't use ketamine, diazepam and all very regularly. What I regularly use for induction is propofol. Where one more person asked, where can we get to know about the workshops and seminars to be attended? Most of the time we get this information from WhatsApp groups. Like we have a group called VTT and VTT2. There is a lot of updates regarding workshops. The lot of different groups will be there. Like global vets are there. There will be your own district WhatsApp groups will be there, and there are associations like NVF, PAWS, and VOF, and even WBS conducts workshops. You can regularly go to their websites and check for the updates of the webinars and workshops.
A few of the other questions are also there. It's the whether the laboratory setup should be in the hospital, or is it necessary to outsource it always, or what are the minimum type of the laboratory equipments we need to keep in the pet clinic? There's some,
Yeah, depending on how big your practice and how many blood samples you draw in a day. If it is like say 10 samples in a day or more than 8 samples in a day, it is worth to have your own laboratory setup because it comes at a cost. The dry chemistry machine will cost you about 6 lakhs, and I think the hematology will cost you about 2.5 lakhs. And how much will your practice manage that type of system, and one more person to handle the equipments is one question. And you can always outsource it. It is not a bad thing, but only thing is hematology basic DLC, basic the slide reading, that you have to do even though you send it to this lab, or even though you have a hematology analyzer. They are all dependent on the size, cell size, and they count the cells on the this one parameters of cell size. So basically you will get errors with the platelet count and all always, even if it is a veterinary specific medicine machine also. So basic will be microscope, stains, slides, and getting used to making good smears, good FNA, good reading. Or you can consult a pathologist. You can make a smear and take photos and ask your pathologist or your friend pathologist about the interpretation of it. That you can have. Or if your practice is big enough to hold like 10 samples in a day, you can also choose to have a biochemistry and hematology analyzer in your clinic itself.
and the next questions are there. And is it to better to have the pet products as to sale in a pet clinic, or what are the pros and consequences of that, particularly pet products sale in a pet clinic?
It is always good to have pet products in the clinic and medicines in the clinic itself. Because it will also give you an additional income. You can maintain one more staff that will ease your own practice. You can maintain somebody. You can the salaries of a person, and it will give you a little extra benefit that your clinic itself will be benefited about. And nothing ethically wrong about selling the products in the clinic itself. And when you write something, they might go to some other pet shop. They might buy. They might not buy, and they might buy a different variety of the medicine. All those things are there. That all can be avoided, and people also will be. It will be convenient for the people to get it from one single place instead of going around. I did not have a pet shop for a longer time, but when I have, I realized that it is actually useful. And cons will be people will you will need to have one staff maintaining for that. You yourself can't go and sell the products, and they will have silly doubts about whether my cat will eat tuna or this one and that. You will not have time to explain about, and you it is not really worth sitting as a salesperson in the pet shop. But you can hire, if you're having a pet shop, better hire somebody to maintain the pet shop and your reception as well. And that will be the cons about it. And yeah, and
And bargaining, sir.
bargaining will be there. Bargaining will be there. That's why you have a person maintaining that, and you don't venture into that. Like you don't go to that area. You tell them this is the available facility, and if you want to buy, you can buy. It is not a mandatory thing that you have to buy here itself. Give them always give them an option to buy it outside or buy it from here. You don't have to force them to buy from here only. So when you give that option, they will whoever wants to buy will buy here. Whoever doesn't want to buy and wants to bargain, they can go out. It's always there.
Yeah. The next question, Meenal Gupta, she has asked, I think, how to decide about the pricing of different services, what the veterinary doctor is going to give. The pricing, especially, this.
Pricing. No? You list out the materials, whatever you use in that procedure. Say, fixing an IV cannula and giving IV fluids. You just list out the things: the tape, the IV cannula, the spirit used, the electricity rent of the place, the amount of time you spent. Say you will be deciding some amount of consultation prices for your practice somewhere. That you can decide. That is up to you. You can decide on a very lower price, where depending on your expectations and your this one expertise. but list out all the materials, whatever is being used, that you have to build. Say if you're using an IV cannula, you have to build that. If you're using two cannulas, say if the animal moves and you don't, you end up using one, losing one IV. Again, if you put one more, you have to build that. You just have to tell them. You just have to communicate it well. That's all. Say this is the thing. These are the things I've used. This is what I've built. You have to that once you make a list of it, you will know what is the price of it, and above that you add your consultation and your expertise. What do you say? The consultation fees and treatment fees that you can decide. But the pricing of the materials shouldn't be compromised. Otherwise, your hospital will go into a loss.
Some people they
Hello.
also prefer the grooming, etc., hair clipping, etc., in the pet clinic. Is it advisable to have it or not to have it, especially these all these other things?
It's advisable to have it because it will give you an additional income, like the pet shop itself. You
Okay.
can choose not to have it because if it is too much headache for you to manage, even if some little thing goes wrong, also they will come and eat your head. If you don't, if you cannot handle those small things from the grooming center, you don't like don't have to be part of it, or you can have a good staff who's say trained to manage the pet shop, and if you believe him or her to manage the grooming part of it, you can definitely have it. It's additional benefit for your clinic, and it is for medicated baths and cuts and all. It will be useful for your own they say you're a surgeon, you're doing abdominal surgery, you can tell the groomer to clip the hair and one day before, and keep the animal ready for the next day surgery, and all those benefits are there.
Okay. Anil Kumar, you raised your hand. No, you want to talk with Dr. Yashasvi? Mr.
Hi,
Anil?
sir.
Okay, please.
Right.
So I just wanted to know the legal complications like hiring veterinary attendants. What will be their basic background to be legally compliant?
Legality of the veterinary attenders, sir.
Yes, sir.
There is no specific norms for, like there is no basic what you say educational qualification anybody demanding for veterinary attenders. You can that is all your like personal interviews you take with him, or you can also choose the persons who are like having a degree with the say diploma in veterinary sciences and all. You can also choose them, but there is no mandatory thing in say legally. You don't have that. You can choose whoever depending on the experience. So far it is there is no legal issues with that as far as I know.
So can you just brief the legal documents whatever we need to have before opening a hospital?
Huh. So say you are opening an hospital, it all depends on where you open. It is say one the term hospital, once you put it, requires a lot of commercial licensing, all this licensing. When if you put it as a clinic or polyclinic, the commercial licensing is exempted in many places. Majorly, if you are doing a house convert, say if you are going for a commercial space or a rented house, you can choose to go to either places. Commercial place will have its own advantages regarding the electricity, and everything will be done before only. You don't have to bang your head on that getting the licensing and all. But the cost of commercial place will be 3 times the rented place. You can also choose to have it in a rented place like house, and you can choose to have a small portion of the house converted for the clinic purposes. You have to go approach the local city corporation for that area, that little portion, as a to be used as a clinic for say. Then they will come and inspect, and they will mark, say you are using on 200 square feet of area for clinic, that you can use, and you can it can be done under the same rental agreement this thing only the owner has to give one NOC for you to start one you to see and you to practice in your in the house. He shouldn't be unaware, like he should be aware of it, and he should sign one NOC. That NOC is enough to get one commercial license, like one license for the place to have a clinic.
So one more question.
Please.
Sir, what will the challenges or difficulties having an inpatient department, sir?
Death of the patient. Most of the time, sometimes suddenly they die, and the very nicest of the people will suddenly sit on your head asking the CCTV footage, the how it died, whether you people have strangulated the animal. All those things, all those allegations and everything will come. That is one problem in patient, and animals running away. Say a cat runs away from your place, and it will be a huge headache. Other than that, having inpatients, if you charge them properly, if you if you can manage your attenders, or even if you have one more thing is you have to have the doctor. If you have an inpatient there, you have to have a doctor on board there only. If some emergency happens, you can't say that doctor went home and nobody was there. If you're deciding to have the inpatient facility, one doctor should stay even during the night. It should be available at least on call in 5-10 minutes. Otherwise, the people can it can go really wrong. But it is worth having, because if you're doing a lot of surgeries and all, if the animal will be under your control for the treatments, for the dressing and everything. So it is feasible for people also to leave. You take only patients who are, like you can judge the people and take the inpatient sample. If you say if you think they are a little problematic, you can choose not to have them as inpatients. But boarding in the hospital is not a great idea. Inpatient is good. Boarding healthy animals may not be.
Okay, the next question is someone has asked that many times the pet medicine shop does it require a B pharma or D pharma graduate when the scheduled drugs are being kept for the sale, etc. Especially the pet medicine shops are always beside. Is it owned by the veterinary doctor, or is it owned by someone else? What about the licensing procedures?
For license, to get a drug license, you need to have a B pharma person's certificate. If you are having a drug say medicine room, say this one, what you say, pharmacy. If you are naming it as pharmacy, and if you are billing the drugs through the pharmacy, it has certain norms. Like it has to have a different entrance from you can't have a entrance from the main clinic to the pharmacy. It needs a separate entrance. It needs a B pharma graduate's certificate. You need a fridge. You need a certain. They will have the list of things to be given for the getting the drug license. You have to have certain area designated for the pharmacy. These are the basic things, and few more things are there. But you can always give it as over the counter. Like if your transaction and if your drug, this medicine giving is not too high, but you can give it as over the counter. But you cannot give a detailed bill of the medicines if you don't have a pharmacy license. You have to have it under a B pharma person only. You can't have it. Being a doctor, I can't own a pharmacy, and I can't dispense the drugs in my name. You have to have a pharmacy person. I think Sridhar sir will know this better.
That's what the doubts were like. Yes, I think most of the doubts you are answered in a very calm and quiet manner as a routine fashion of your this thing. Especially, I am very much thankful to you for attending such a long period, about 1 hour and 11 minutes. You stayed with us, and I think you have taken a lot of strain to prepare the slides, etc. Of course, the students and some of the faculty members, they also participated. And I am extremely thankful to you, Dr. for it is for a such.
Can ask one or two doubts, I think.
One plus, yes.
Hello.
Yes, yes, please. Please go ahead.
Sir, what is the procedure to get biomedical waste management service, sir?
Biomedical waste management service will be there in your city. Bangalore, there are two people. One is Ramji and one is Prasad. You have to ask them and give your KVC certificate and your basic licensing certificates. The place, the clinic, this one is there, no? The commercial license and all. That you have to submit him, and he will make the documents ready, and it will come up to 14,000 rupees per year, I think so. And every weekly, twice or thrice, they will come and collect your biomedical waste, and the plastic covers what they give will be charged extra. and you have to segregate your waste properly as a what is the biological waste and plastic, recyclable plastic, and other segregations will be there. That color coded bags they'll give. That you have to segregate and give. They'll come and collect. That will cost you about 15,000 rupees. But that is a mandatory thing to have. It is needed.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for all for participating, and Dr. SSV, you have done a very wonderful job, because many of the youngsters are being inspired by the people like you, because you directly started the small animal practice, even though after leaving these government jobs and other kind of the hiring, and that requires really a better courage. I think Dr. Suresh Patel, have you joined? And you want to interact with Dr. Yashasvi?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, I'm in traveling.
And you can have one or two words with Dr. Yashasvi.
But it's so nice to see you, sir, after so many years.
Yashashvi, nice presentation.
Thank
Proud
you,
of you.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Keep it up.
Yes, sir. One question somebody asked: suggest few books and websites you following for treatment protocols. Is one book I follow is Teresa Fossum for Surgery, and I always prefer to have the hard copies of the books. I always have this zoo and wild animal medicine with me, and what else? Ettinger is there for medicine. You can always have this MSD, this one Merck's manual with you for all the treatments, general treatment, everything it covers generally. And few more. There are many books actually. I will share the names.
Oh,
You can, sir, you can share my number if they have some doubts. I can tell
Yeah,
you.
yeah, surely I'll share it. The thing is, when they
WhatsApp text me regarding anything. I'll whatever I can do. I'll do.
they say, especially the human doctors, every year it's compulsory for them to attend a very good
Intensive.
or other thing.
Yes.
Is it very much required to veterinary doctors? And many times they are not at all attending and too much occupied in their own professional this thing. How much important that is, especially the updation of knowledge, etc. Or else the same experience will make the man perfect. That's enough. Or reading, self-reading is enough.
Both. You will gain knowledge from your own experience. Also, you will gain experience from others. Also, you will gain experience from your friend. Like you will gain knowledge from your friends also. So all these things are very important. You please invest a lot of money and lot of time in continuing education programs. A lot of them are being conducted. Some nice ones, hands-on trainings, mostly hands-on trainings. I'm telling. Like 2-3 days. If you can spare from your time routine life, whenever you have time, it is always better to attend. It is worth it. Even if it is like 30,000 for 30,000 for 3 days, it is worth it sometimes. Like you see the sessions, that decision is yours, but it is always better to attend. And like even if you know some skills, you will get to know some more skills there.
Many times these training programs are also organized in abroad, maybe in Singapore or other places. And also some India, also many of the universities are also arranging the training program. And do you recommend the attending the foreign training programs, and how do you rate them? And especially nowadays, it's open for every person. This online webinars and other things are also there.
To attend the foreign programs and all, that much money I don't have. But whatever is happening in India, I'm attending. Whichever is like at least nearby, Goa, Bombay, and other places. Yeah.
Okay.
But abroad programs I have not attended so far. Sometimes the speakers come from abroad and they teach them. They're really nice people generally.
Okay, that's a fine information you have given it to the youngsters and also the fellow practitioners with open-heartedness. That's very important. And many think that keeping the everything is secret or it's a trade secret. Many times they say, just like the pharmaceutical term. But you have nothing kept anything as the closed as I observed since last 1 hour. And on behalf of the Karnataka Veterinary Animal and Fisheries Sciences University, and also from the Veterinary College Shumaga, and from my department and myself, I am thankful to you for coming here and attending. And in future also, we may require your service. We need to spare the 1 hour or half an hour. Because another thing is many of the youngsters in future, I do not know, about 5 years, there may be shortage of jobs, and especially the government jobs. Many times it becomes the monotony to the people. So,
Yeah.
in this background, your talk remains a green for everywhere, every time for us as concerned. And I am once again I am thankful to you. Thank you, Dr. SSV. And if
Thank
no
you. Thank you.
questions, we are going to conclude this session and end this session.
Can ask questions if you have whatever.
Okay.
No. I'll give
And
2 minutes for.
for 2 minutes, any persons, or else I got one last questions, because this pet clinic or establishment of the pet clinic in the metro cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, and the second line cities like the Mangalore or the Hubli, there is a lot of differences, and establishment of a clinic in case of the taluk headquarters or the Shimoga totally different. There may be differences. So I think you have got the experience in working everywhere, especially in Bangalore also you have worked, and in Mangalore and Shimoga also you have seen. So how do you rate all these places? Is it better to open a clinic in the metro cities, or you can come out of that thing and establish the clinics, especially in the other cities, parallel cities?
If you want to do a very specialized practice, like very specific practice, it is always better to open it in a bigger city, because you will have a option of referring cases to different places. Like if you are not an expert in eye, if you are expert in bone, you can refer it to somewhere else in a city like Bangalore or Bombay. But if you want like wide variety of cases, you enjoy treating different type of cases and different challenges. It will be very challenging to open it in a smaller city, but it is fun. It is like your everyday will be different, and you will get a lot of referral cases. You'll get a wide variety of cases, but with less fees. But that is okay. But Bangalore will be a nice place to open if you're thinking about thinking from a business perspective. But from my experience, I would say smaller cities are much more fun to be and to live, also to have a practice also. Yeah.
I think you are also practicing this wild animal. No, it's a passion to you. I think because you are
No, that is my priority number one.
priority and it's your own degree. So I think,
Yes.
how do you spare some time to this? Especially it requires a lot of patience, etc., for treating these wild animals, because the anesthesia, everything. How do you spare your time among all this busy schedule? I think I have seen your personally work and how busy you are every day.
Yes, sir. But we always have wild like foster animals and the what you say, the juveniles and everything in the clinic all the time. We still have 2 civet cats and 1 barn owl and
Okay.
different things in the clinic all the time. So that also gives me a lot of relief, and like it also gives me a like I'll be very happy treating. Honestly, I don't like pet practice. I like wild animals more. I
Okay.
don't like to talk to people in general. So, but this is my priority. If there is a say there is a capture of an wild animal, I'll postpone most of my work, and I'll try to go for it in most of the occasions. So that is how I prioritize things. Since I have good doctors working with me, I can depend on them and go. No, earlier I used to somehow make time and go, but I will make sure, I always make sure that I go and treat a wild animal case if there is one. Yeah, out of my own interest and money, nothing. Sometimes they reimburse my amount, but not much.
Yeah.
It is own personal interest only,
Okay,
nothing
okay.
else.
Because of your passions and love towards that
Ah,
particular subject is there. And Dr. Avinash, yes, once again, ask you, sir, do you report anyone to treat wild animals or before
yeah,
treatment?
I always after getting one request only from
Okay.
the department only I go. Otherwise, I don't go. And once everything is done, I give a like fitness certificate, or say if it is if it dies, I'll take a photo of the burial and everything, and I'll report it to the department. It's always their property. No, we can't like forget that. We have to report it to them. We have to keep everything the record very clean. You have to report. You can't just treat. without harming them, even if it is a small bird.
Okay. So
Yes,
you
sir.
are enlightened for the pet practice and also the wild animal practice. Of course, a very
Yes.
challenging and very, very interesting area. So thank you so much, Dr. SSV. And visit the college as and when you get the time,
Yes,
permits,
sir.
and when you go to the Bangalore, etc. Please go by this route and spend some time with us. So with that, I thank you very much, and
Thank you,
I
sir. Thank you for giving the opportunity so far, and it has been